Think back to a summer when you were 8. It lasted forever. Whole lifetimes happened between June and September. Now think about this year. It's July. Half of it is already gone, and you can barely say where. Somewhere between that summer and this one, time changed speed. Most people shrug that off as a feeling. It isn't a feeling. It's one of the most consistent findings in the entire psychology of time. And the reason it happens is stranger than you'd ever guess. Because buried in this science is a man who spent 2 months alone in the dark under a glacier. When he came back up, he was missing almost an entire month. Not from his calendar, from his mind. You've been told time flies when you're having fun, that life gets busy as you get older, and the years slip past because you stopped paying attention. That story has it backward. Time is not speeding up. Your brain is writing less of it down. The clock never changed. The recorder did. There's an explanation you've probably already heard. The math one. Each year is a smaller slice of your whole life, so each one should feel smaller. It's clean, it's famous, and it can't be right, because math can't explain why a single boring afternoon still crawls. It can't explain why 1 week of your life can feel longer than the entire year around it. And it definitely can't explain the man under the glacier. Something stranger is running the show. Nowhere in your head is there an organ whose only job is keeping time. Your brain builds time out of chemistry, moment by moment, on the fly, and chemistry can be bent. One night in the 1930s, a physiologist named Hudson Hoagland was nursing his wife through a bad fever. She swore he'd been gone for hours. He'd been gone minutes. So he did what only a scientist would do to a sick spouse. He asked her to count to 60 in her head, one number every second, and he timed her. Her minute came out closer to 40 seconds, and the pattern held all week. The hotter the fever burned, the faster her inner clock spun. He'd found something nobody expected. The seconds you feel are manufactured by a wet machine, and heat makes the machine run fast. Time, to your brain, is negotiable. But if the clock can bend, how far can it bend? There is one moment when everyone agrees time slows to a crawl. The car crash. People walk away from accidents swearing the whole thing happened in slow motion. The glass floating, the horn stretching into one long note. So in the 2000s, a neuroscientist in Texas decided to test it. He took volunteers up a tower 15 stories tall and dropped them. No rope, no harness. A free fall of about 150 feet into a net. Backward at more than 70 miles an hour. Each volunteer wore a device on their wrist flashing digits just slightly too fast for a normal brain to read. If time really slows in terror, a falling person should be able to read the numbers. Not one of them could. But here's the twist. When they were asked to estimate how long their own fall lasted, they guessed about a third longer than it really was. The man who ran that experiment was David Eagleman, and what he'd proven is that time never slows. Memory thickens. In terror, the brain's alarm system starts recording everything, every flicker, every heartbeat, a file 10 times denser than an ordinary moment. And when your brain reads a denser file back, the moment feels longer, which means felt time isn't measured while it happens. It's measured by how much your brain kept. That is the whole secret. The length of your past is the size of the file. And that flips your childhood on its head. The summers weren't longer when you were 8. Your brain was recording everything because everything was new. The first sting of salt water, the first argument you ever lost, the first time an adult lied to you. A child's June is wall-to-wall first times, and a first time gets filed in full. By 40, your brain has seen the commute 10,000 times, so it stops filing it. Ask older people for their most vivid memories and something strange happens. The answers pile up between the ages of roughly 15 and 25. First jobs, first loves, first apartments. Then they thin out, sharply, for decades. Psychologists call it the reminiscence bump. It isn't that your 20s mattered more. They were simply the last decade your brain treated as news. Try to remember last Tuesday. Anything. For most of us, there's nothing there, because the brain quietly merged it with every other Tuesday and kept a single copy. A year with no new entries reads back as a sentence. You even watched this happen to the whole world at once. In 2020, a psychologist named Ruth Ogden surveyed people locked down at home and found that for roughly 8 in 10 of them, time had broken. The days crawled, the months vanished. Empty time is the slowest thing you can live through and the shortest thing you can remember. So the speed of your years was never set by the calendar. It is set by how much change your brain has to file. But if change is what builds time, what happens to a mind when you take away all of it? No sunrise, no seasons, no faces. One man found out on purpose, and it nearly unmade him. This is the man from the very start. In 1962, a 23-year-old French geologist named Michel Siffre climbed down a shaft in the Alps to a glacier 400 feet below the surface and stayed there for 2 months. No clock, no calendar, no daylight, just a tent, a lamp, and a phone line. When his team finally called him up, Siffre was certain of the date. He said it was August 20th. It was September 14th. 25 days of his life had dissolved without him feeling them go, and it ran deeper than the date. From the surface, they asked him to count off 2 minutes, 1 number per second. His 2 minutes took 5. His inner clock had stretched to half speed, and from the inside, he never noticed. A decade later, he went down again, into a Texas cave for more than 200 days, with NASA watching his data, and it got darker. His sleep broke loose from the sun entirely. Some of his days quietly stretched to 48 hours, and he lived them as ordinary days, never suspecting a thing. By the end, he was struggling to hold a thought from 1 hour to the next, because with nothing new to record, 1 hour was identical to the last. He wrote that the days blurred into a single, long moment. He came up talking about despair, not because the dark was frightening, because time itself had stopped being made. Strip away every first time, and you don't just lose track of the date, you lose the thing the date was made of. Now look at your own week. The same desk, the same screen, the same route, the same shows, the same conversations on the same apps. Nobody sealed you under a glacier, but a life run entirely on repeat is a paler version of that cave, and your brain treats it the same way. It stops filing, and years that never got filed feel, looking back, like they never quite happened. That's the ache you feel every December. Not that time moved too fast, that so little of it got kept. Here's the part worth holding on to. You can't slow the clock. Nobody can. But the length of your life, the felt length, the only length you will ever actually experience, was never about the clock. It's about the file. And the file grows every time you hand your brain something it hasn't seen. A street you've never walked, a skill you're still bad at, a first time, at any age. The brain doesn't count hours, it counts news. So no, the summers weren't longer when you were 8. You were newer. Time will keep moving at exactly 1 second per second all the way to the end. How long it feels is the one part that was always yours.